Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Sonic the Hedgehog? Stick around and find out! Sega! That's all I have. If there's some kind of Sonic the Hedgehog theme song, I don't know it. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Here's my uncut review of Sonic the Hedgehog. The synopsis, there's actually two synopses over at IMDb. The first one's written by Paramount. I don't think it's very good. They write, based on the global blockbuster video game franchise from Sega, Sonic the Hedgehog tells the story of the world's speediest hedgehog as he embraces his new home on Earth. In this live-action adventure comedy, Sonic and his new best friend Tom team up to defend the planet from the evil genius Dr. Robotnik and his plans for world domination. The family-friendly film also stars Tika Sumpter and Ben Schwartz as the voice of Sonic. I don't think that's quite the best write-up because he doesn't, like, the whole idea of Tom being his new best friend, that remains to be seen through, like, most of the movie, what's going to happen with their friendship, if anything, is going to really solidly materialize. And it's a major theme, it's a major part of the plot. And then also Dr. Robotnik, his plans for world domination, he doesn't have plans for world domination in this movie. Maybe in the video game franchise he does, but that's not his primary agenda at all in this movie. The better one is this much shorter one that I found on the same page. After discovering a small blue fast hedgehog, a small-town police officer must help it defeat an evil genius who wants to do experiments on it. There you go. Short and sweet, and I think much more accurate to the core of what this thing is about. I don't have any nostalgia for Sonic the Hedgehog. I was a Super Nintendo kid. I certainly knew of Sonic, and I think I've played about maybe 90 seconds of some Sonic game in my life, but it just was not for me. Probably just trying it out, I think, at a friend's house very briefly, and I don't know, I certainly haven't watched any of the cartoons or other things that have spawned since then, any of the more recent video games, so I know there are hardcore fans out there who really do like Sonic. I'm not one of them, and I have very little knowledge of that entire intellectual property, the world associated with it, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going in fresh. That's where I'm coming from. Let's talk about, though, what this animal is. Its story, script, pacing, tone, what's the vibe. I would describe it as a family sci-fi action comedy, which I can't think of many of those that are really being made all the time. The performance styles from the actors are just slightly overdone, with many jokes that didn't land for me. They're kind of, fairly simplistic jokes, at least half of them, that you would expect from like a family comedy movie that's not necessarily going to make an adult viewer laugh. But there were nearly just as many that did. It almost seemed like some, especially when Sonic was opening his mouth, those kind of jokes and what he was doing, that's to entertain the kids. And then the kinds of things that came out of the villain's mouth, Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik, that was geared more toward adult sensibilities, I think. And so there was an interesting kind of split of sensibilities. And James Marsden, the kind of support character, the buddy character for Sonic, he was kind of like mostly a vanilla straight man character that was reacting to Sonic, but also had a few funny moments of his own. His writing went back and forth between simplistic, for the kids kind of stuff, and now and then some grounded stuff that had just a touch of psychological realism that I think will speak to the funny bones of adults. There were some much appreciated grounded psychological moments and brief, some just slightly dark bits of humor, and some of these you've seen in the trailer. In fact, the two that I'll mention were in the trailer, one of the trailers already. One is when, James Marsden first sees Sonic. His reaction isn't, "Wow, what are you, cute little guy?" Like you might see in some purely family, purely kids movie. No, his reaction is one of shock and horror, and he screams, and he's not the only character to do that when he first sees Sonic. And I think that's great because there's a little bit more psychological realism to that, and it really, hits my funny bone as a result. And another type of moment would be, let's see, when he's sneaking Sonic into a building within a duffel bag, and there's an exchange between some passerby who's like, "Is that your child?" in the duffel bag in that bag? And he's like, oh no, it is a child, but it's not mine. And so suddenly you have this dark, like they're thinking, oh my gosh, he's smiling about, openly smiling about kidnapping someone's child. So there's just some little moments like that I think are a little bit more maybe for adults, just because they have just a shade of darkness to them. Anyway, the tension in this story isn't about life or death. Now, that is part of the plot. In theory, Sonic is running from this evil doctor who is totally fine with him being dead so he can dissect him or whatever, But that's not, I don't think you're ever worried, at least as an adult. You're not worried, like, is there a possibility that he's going to die? I don't think that's really going to be entering into an adult's mind watching this. It's more about Sonic finding friendship. Which is a theme that I'll come back to when I talk about themes in a minute. That's kind of like, is he going to be able to stay in this world where he really wants to stay? Or is he going to have to run away to a much less appealing place in order to remain safe? And that reminds me of just a little bit of a nod, maybe, to the rivalry between Sega and Nintendo. Now, you Sonic fans can tell me whether or not this is a Sonic thing or not, but the possible escape route he has is to use a portal to go to another planet in another part of the universe that is like populated by only mushrooms, and they call it the Mushroom Planet, and that sounds very close to Mushroom Kingdom, which is the basic setting of the Mario Brothers games. And they describe this Mushroom Planet as like this boring place. No one's going to want to be there. There's nothing to do. It's just like it's like this, a horrible place that Sonic does not want to be. Super boring, And I'm wondering, is that like just a very subtle, dig, or reference to the old rivalry between Sega and Nintendo? Not necessarily them reviving that rivalry now, but I don't know. Maybe there is a Mushroom Planet in the Sonic games that has nothing to do with the rivalry that they had between Nintendo. You guys can tell me in the comments. But anyway, they also incorporate the rings into the story. In the games, he's always spinning, flying around, or rolling around, or running around, whatever he does, and collecting these rings. Well, they make them really a part of the story and assign like the ability to create portals to other worlds and the other sides of the universe. Now, maybe that's part of the video game lore, I don't know, but it was an interesting thing for me as someone who just saw rings as like these things that he collects, just like Mario collects coins. Well, they were actually a major part of the story, and so I think that things like that are probably going to appeal to classic fans, old school fans of Sonic, but there's also stuff in here that clearly seems aimed at kids, maybe kids that discovered Sonic in the more recent games or in the animated shows and things like that. Sonic at one point in a celebratory moment is flossing, and I don't mean his teeth, And there's also a reference where he's like pretending in the middle of an action sequence to be in the middle of a live stream. He's like going at it with Dr. Robotnik, and he's like, "Hey everybody, welcome to my live stream. Today I'm da 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 da," and I'm like, that is so my boys. That's what they like to do, to pretend. They like to pretend that they're live streaming, and so there definitely seems to be elements of the writing that are strongly appealing to kids. This is not just for old fogies like me that maybe would have grown up on Sega and are finally getting, a Sonic movie. It strikes me as a great halfway point experience, and one that I enjoyed more than I thought I would, even having no nostalgia for Sonic and very little knowledge of the source material. As far as the cast and performances go, James Marsden is the straight man, and he serves well in that role, I think. I personally, just for my sensibilities, would have liked a character or casting or a performance that was more of a comedic worrier, more of a worrier straight man, where Sonic is like, everything's fine, da, 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 and he's totally oblivious to the worries and concerns of the people around him. It would have been a nice juxtaposition to have a character who was a little bit more on the side of freaking out more often. James Marsden's character does freak out once or twice, but other than that, he adapts really pretty quickly to being around Sonic and going on a road trip adventure with Sonic and stuff. So I would have liked that element to be a little bit stronger in kind of a support character for Sonic in this movie. As it was, he was just a little bit too vanilla of a character, I guess. But he does have a nice character arc that he delivers well in terms of what the script was asking for and what he was meant to do. So I think that for what they wrote, he was a good fit. Ben Schwartz, who I know best from Parks and Recreation, he plays plays the character Jean-Ralphio, who I hate that character in that show. And I could, I haven't finished watching that series yet, but I'm like, oh man, anytime Jean-Ralphio comes on, I'm like, oh man, is he a major part of the story? Can I skip this episode? But he provides the voice of Sonic, and I enjoyed him much more in this role than in Parks and Rec. He basically does a solid cartoony style of performance, nothing especially nuanced or layered, or not, with subtext and stuff like that. He's just doing what you would expect from a cartoony type of character. Maybe in the sequel he'll have room to have flexibility in how he performs the characters, give some more offbeat and interesting choices and moments. But for kids, I think he's going to work really well. He's just doing that straight cartoony kind of thing, with only a few exceptions. There are a few exceptions. I don't want to say that he had this totally vanilla, uninteresting performance, but for the most part, he's just going for like what feels like a standard cartoony type of plucky cartoon voice. Jim Carrey is really the standout for me in this movie, which will probably come as no surprise. He's returning, as many have said already, to the comedic style that he's most known for from his classic movies of the 90s, and it feels welcome and fresh again, which surprised me a bit. I thought coming into the movie, I was like, I wonder if this will just feel kind of sad, like, his career's kind of like settled down for a while, and now he's going to do this again, so that we all think, oh yeah, remember when he used to be funny and stuff like that, but he just won't really be funny. No, he was funny. He was funny to me. And I remember in the 90s, I did get tired of him after a while because he was just playing the same character basically over and over again, and I'm just like, come on, the Riddler doesn't need to be like Fire Marshal Bill. I mean, that's an overstatement, but you get what I think you get what I'm saying if you've watched a lot of Jim Carrey movies, that after a while it's like, come on, but I was ready for that again in a way that I didn't expect. And it's not to say that it was rinse and repeat, of the same thing that he's done. It did have some differences, a little bit of nuance, but a lot of it was just the same Jim Carrey kind of thing, and it felt right for this character. It worked in this kind of setting, and I'll be interested to see him return for a sequel, which there are indications in the story that he will be back, for a sequel, and that they'd really like to do a sequel. So I'd be interested in that. Both his dialogue and his performance, paired with that dialogue, had me chuckling the most consistently of any character in this movie. So yeah, he just delighted me and took me off guard, honestly, with how much I enjoyed that unique zany style of delivery that is Jim Carrey's alone. As far as the visuals go, they're not going for realism, so I wasn't expecting that. But what I will say is that the folks, in theory, working on the Flash movie, they better be watching this, and they better be ready to raise the bar, for what they're planning on doing, because there is lots of cool super speed stuff in this, and they're even ripping off the Flash with the electricity that's flowing around him when he's going really super fast. I'm like, that is totally the Flash, come on, and he's reading, to the movie's credit, they acknowledge the Flash because Sonic is a big Flash fan. He's got a big stack of Flash comic books that he's reading, in a couple of scenes, and so, but they do lots of cool stuff. There's not drama attached to it because it's not a serious movie, but it's still kind of neat. Here, I'll use the word neat to describe kind of the spectacle and, what Sonic did in those big, spectacular, slow-motion moments. So, as far as themes, this one, I don't want to talk too much about the themes and how they play out, because I think that's relevant to some, stuff that happens at the end of the movie. So you can, if you are a patron at the $5 level and higher at patreon.com/spiritbloodproductions, you can check out my spoiler car video, which I'll be putting up later on today, where I really go in depth about these story arcs, these themes, and how they played out in the end. But I'll just say this for now. Sonic realizes early on in the movie that he wants real friendships. We see him in this scene playing a baseball game with himself, which he can do because he's so fast. He can play every position on both sides of both teams. But at the end, he realizes there's really no one to celebrate his victory with. There's no one really to truly enjoy that experience with. He's just by himself. And Tom, the main character, Tom, the support character Tom, is thinking about taking a job in San Francisco because he wants to do things that will be more significant, save lives and that kind of stuff. And so he has this idea in his mind of these things he wants to accomplish that he thinks are going to bring him fulfillment in life. And both of those arcs kind of meet in the climax with a great moment that affirms the importance of investing in the lives of people around us rather than living in sort of relational seclusion, being at a willful distance to other people and chasing maybe achievements over relationships, or chasing just kind of self-absorbed self-entertainment instead of pursuing relationships. And I think there's a lot in those themes for us as geeks to really think about. It really had me pondering on the way home. It's like, where am I at in like real world flesh and blood, away from keyboard relationships, in life, and where am I investing in those, and could I be investing more, and should I be investing more? So I don't think, I would be surprised if the writers were like really expecting that people would walk away pondering those things. So some of that is because I come to entertainment looking for and wondering about what themes they're going to present, and then I intentionally choose to ponder those themes and reflect on my life as it relates to parallel things going on in the story. But whether it's intended or not, I think the Holy Spirit can use things like this. And so I think there's an opportunity when watching this movie to consider the value of relationships over and above accomplishments that we might pursue, achievements that we might pursue, or relationships, their importance over and above just kind of being secluded and entertaining ourselves, and instead choosing to invest in other people and caring about them. So anyway, yeah, some potentially really worthwhile stuff going on in this movie if you're looking for it. Now, I have no idea what your tastes in movies are, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, okay, rent this one for sure. This is going to be really a great halfway point experience for you to watch with your boys that they're going to enjoy a lot, but you are not going to be tortured sitting with them on a family movie night just watching a movie for their sake. No, this is a movie that, like, when they're not laughing, you'll be laughing. And when you're not laughing, they'll probably be laughing. And you'll both enjoy the spectacle and just kind of like the nature of the movie, the fun of the movie, So, yeah, definitely you want to rent this one at some point. You can get my spoiler-filled reactions, as I mentioned, to Sonic the Hedgehog today in my Spoiler Cart video series, just one of many perks available for your support over at patreon.com/SpiritBladeProductions. This one's rated PG for action, some violence, rude humor, and brief, mild language. All right, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below, especially you Sega fans. I'm curious to think what you think of my reaction to this and what you thought of the movie if you've seen it. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell if you want to stay connected to what's going on at this channel. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders again for making this and so many of my reviews possible. Thank you so much, guys. You can get info again at patreon.com/SpiritBladeProductions. Then I hope you join us soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We've got a ton going on here at Spirit Blade Productions and Christian Geek Central, including our in-depth Bible study for geeks, movie, game, and other entertainment reviews or commentary, live streams, Christian geek news, original audio dramas, and tons more. And on top of all that, you can become a Spirit Blade insider with an influential voice and get access to exclusive content and rewards. It's your involvement as a patron that will keep all of this going and growing. So I want to thank you for your consideration in that. For more information, please check out our Patreon page through the link below at patreon.com/SpiritBladeProductions. Thanks for listening.